Somewhere in the world right now, a parent is asking their teenage son or daughter what LOL means. Although this may seem silly, it is most likely true considering all the new terms and slang that everyone uses in their daily lives. The world today revolves around the internet, which contains millions of hashtags and memes. Some people still do not even know what these two things are, due to the lack of exposure to the various platforms of social media. Interpreting some of these terms or phrases on social media today can be quite different if one is not fully enveloped in it. It also may be difficult to interpret the amount of sarcasm used on the internet if one is not used to it either. On the other hand, someone that uses social media too much may have trouble with everyday face-to-face encounters. Many teenagers these days have lost the valuable knowledge of knowing how to speak to someone in person rather than over text. There are many aspects of what some may consider the new language that has come with social media, along with the positives and negatives of it. Ultimately, social media has changed the way that people communicate and interact with one another every day. The language of social media has changed the way people communicate entirely. There are also changes in the way people talk to in each different platform. From Facebook to Snapchat, all these different platforms even have separate ways of how conversations may work. When people use Snapchat, they just use pictures and small amounts of text to talk to each other. Snapchat has made it entirely possible for two people to have a full conversation and not say a single word. Another social media platform that uses images as its main form of communication is Instagram. These two platforms have certainly done a marvelous job because of the amount of people that use them daily. It is debatable, though, whether this form of communication is effective or not. Matthew Pittman and Brandon Reich, in an article from the journal Computers in Human Behavior, do a good job in explaining why Snapchat and Instagram are both platforms of social media that may ameliorate loneliness. In the article, Social Media and Loneliness, Why an Instagram Picture May Be Worth More Than 1,000 Twitter Words, Pittman and Reich write, quantitative results suggest that loneliness may decrease, while happiness and satisfaction with life may increase as a function of image-based social media use. In contrast, text-based media use appears ineffectual. Quantitative results suggest that the observed effects may be due to the enhanced intimacy offered by the image-based versus text-based social media use. With this, the authors imply that these two image-based platforms are good sources of communication and are beneficial to people. This may be strange to think about, though, considering that usually social media is portrayed to remove any intimate or close and personal relationship between people. Certain platforms do just that, and is apparent from recent times. This can all refer to what authentic and inauthentic relationships online are. There is a clear distinction between an authentic and inauthentic relationship. Although it seems that authentic online relationships these days are rare because of the lack of communication to one another. People may just know each other from friending someone on Facebook or following them on Twitter. This is also a way someone may attempt to talk to someone else instead of just talking to them in person. Although this way is effective and may be more comfortable for them, it does not necessarily make it better. This would most likely be categorized as an inauthentic online relationship, unless one put in the time and effort to get to know the person. However, the most authentic relationships are usually created in person. Although social media is such a convenient way to communicate, it is possible that it is tearing people further apart from one another. Younger generations seem to have a struggle with communicating to someone in person. It is also a matter of people not wanting to leave the comfort of their computer or phone screens. Face-to-face interaction with one another seems as if it is becoming a lost art. Platforms such as Twitter and Facebook allow people to express their opinions about something or someone without having to deal with any hate in person. Something that is well known is that it is easier to confront someone from the safety of one's house rather than in person. However, author Nancy K. Bayham, in an article from the journal New Media and Society, gives an example to this face-to-face versus online communication in the article Social Interactions Across Media. Interpersonal communication on the internet, telephone, and face-to-face. By writing, A communication diary assessed with the relative amount of social interactions college students conducted online compared to face-to-face conversation and telephone calls. Results indicated that while the internet was integrated into college students' social lives, face-to-face communication remained the dominant role of interaction. Participants reported using the internet as often as the telephone. With the survey, the author shows how in actuality face-to-face communication with college students is the dominant mode of interaction despite the use of social media. Although it is only college students in the sample, this shows that face-to-face interaction is still valued regardless of social media. Hopefully in the future, people will continue to value talking to someone in person rather than over Facebook. Possibly one of the greatest forms of communication these days is texting. Texting, otherwise known as textees, has seen many changes since its introduction. People today have shortened their conversations through text messages by using many different abbreviations and emoticons. It is almost like an entirely new language has been developed. Author Robert Fulford's article from the journal Culture, a Reader for Writers, gives an analogy of how hashtags were created, which ties into the new language of social media and texting. In his article, How Twitter Saved the Octothorpe, Fulford writes, "It's heartening that this function has been created spontaneously, unplanned by the Twitter hierarchy, just as, long ago, copyist monks in the monasteries invented their own working language." Although he is just referring to the Octothorpe or hashtag, this applies to all communication done online, and even over text. Opposed to when texting was first introduced, people's conversations today probably look very informal in comparison. Most people have deserved the use of proper punctuation and spelling when texting each other. The convenience of instant messaging and social media as a means to communicate to one another has definitely made people laxer with their grammar. Autocorrect also contributes to this. It might be the fact that today, since society moves at a very rapid pace and people feel the need to be as short and quick as possible. This habit has been created over the past couple of years, is fairly apparent in change. The emoticon, or emoji, is probably the most drastic and impacting change of the English language in the past decade. From anything ranging from a simple smiley face to a heart, emojis have completely changed the way people communicate online and over text. It is possible to even consider emoticons a separate language in themselves. There are certain things that emojis and emoticons make possible to portray over text or online, such as emotions. Someone can let another person know how they feel with a simple sad face or happy face. This would not even require the person to say anything. Author Petra Krauch, and his article from the journal PLOS 1 gives a good analysis of how often emojis are used in social media platforms. In the article, Sentiment of Emojis, Krauch writes, "We provide the first emoji sentiment lexicon, called the Emoji Sentiment Ranking, and draw a sentiment map of 751 most frequently used emojis. The sentiment of the emojis is computed from the sentiment of the tweets in which they occur. We engaged 83 human annotators to label over 1.6 million tweets in 13 European languages by the sentiment polarity, negative, neutral, or positive. About 4% of the annotated tweets contain emojis. The sentiment analysis of the emoji allows us to draw several interesting conclusions. It turns out that most of the emojis are positive, especially the most popular ones. In this mathematical analysis, it shows how frequently the emoji are used. It also shows that the most popular used emojis have a positive meaning. Emojis are used all over the world and can connect people that do not even speak the same language as each other. What's so amazing about the newest additions to the English and universal language." Abbreviations are also a large factor of texting today. There are too many to try and even count. Authors Dixon Jr. and Herbert B. and their article from the journal Judge's Journal do a good job of explaining why abbreviations are used so often. In the article Texting, Tweeting, and Other Internet Abbreviations, the authors write, not only do text messaging and Twitter have character limitations, so do other forms of new media, such as instant messaging and internet chat rooms. Thus, based on the need to get a point over quickly, there developed a need to use as few words and letters as possible to get one's point across. There is even a book, TTYL, based on the internet transcripts, instant messaging transcripts between the three high school girls facing a variety of emotional events in their personal and social lives. The book is written in the same way in which today's internet slang abbreviations are used. Interestingly, there have been at least 3 sequels to the book, also written using real-life internet abbreviations. With this, the authors explain that with today's fast-paced society, people make things as short as possible. This is just like people using emojis to be as abrupt as possible. Social media has changed the way that people communicate and interact with one another every day. Whether it is over texting, tweeting, Snapchatting, or any other platform of social media, the way people talk to one another is different than how it used to be. Although it may not be apparent when talking in person, it should be obvious when looking over conversations over text. The introduction of emoticons and abbreviations to shorten up our sentences has certainly added to all of this. The lexicon of social media has changed tremendously over the years, and will most likely continue to.